Hi, everyone. We're glad to have you here today. As you're logging in, we're going to try something new. My name is Cyndy Mcdonald. I'm broadcasting to you from Central California, where we are still all in lockdown mode, just like everybody else. And my co-presenters today are Jamie Dickinson. How are you doing in West Virginia, Jamie?
Girl, this pandemic needs to get over before I lose my mind. I'm just fat and rolling around and like I'm so bored. I'm talking to the people that call my house to try to sell me something, to ask them how they did their sales training. I'm like, I need to get out of my house. Trust me.
And we have Krista Green, and she's going to be monitoring your questions and your comments. And I'd love to know who is here. So we're going to do something a little different today. I've seen this done in a couple other meetings, and you may have had this going on in some of the Zoom meetings you've done, but we're going to use the chat and just tell us who's in the house. You can give us your first name and your location and just put it in the chat, and we'll just have a running chat. And that way, as we do our forum today, we'll be able to hear from you, hear your thoughts. I see Debbie, Peggy, Amanda, and tell us too, are you an AAC, a financial planner? Do you work, in a school, student? Look at this, Jamie. We've got people from all over. What country, if you're from another country. I know I have listeners from Colombia and all over. So
I like being popular.
NYC. So look at this. And now you guys can all see each other as well. I don't know if you've had the experience that I've had, that sometimes you're on these meetings and you're wondering, who else is there? Who else is listening? And, who else is participating? So, so now, we've got Joyce from Hawaii, Vancouver, just all sorts of places. So we've got a lot to cover today. And as we're going through things, if it generates a thought or a comment, or you have a link you want to share, put that in the chat. If you have a question that you really want Jamie and I to address, then let's still use the question and answers. And Krista is going to be monitoring those. That way we'll have a lot of, ways to interact and cover the things that you want to hear about. So I'm just so glad and just feel very humbled to have such a response. We had, again, almost 300. We were 4 people shy of 300 people registering, Jamie, for today's session.
Well, where are those other 4 people?
See, this is why you're my great colleague, because the way you think.
That ought to be marketing. I'd have been calling 4 people. Just say, get on there so we can hit our goal. That's a big goal.
We are recording this so that if you want to come back and see this, you'll be able to. So keep putting your comments and where you're at and what your role is. And I am going to go ahead. There's a lot every week. There's just things are flying right and left. So I have some things to share, and Jamie has some things to share with you today. So are you ready, Jamie? Should we get started?
I'm ready, sister.
All right.
Ready.
You guys ready? Okay. So let's go. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how this works. Okay. 1, 2, 3. You should be seeing Friday Forum. Is that what you're seeing?
Yep.
All right. So, and our slides about who we are. Some of you have joined us several times. Some of you, this may be the first time that you've joined us. My name is Cyndy Mcdonald. I've been an educational consultant for over 30 years. Started off doing financial aid consulting. I'm a 5th generation Coloradoan, but I live in California. So I love working with students and families. Some of you I've taught through UCLA. I love being an instructor for UCLA. And I've interviewed probably over 100 people and have my own YouTube channel. So that's kind of my claim to fame. And we're going to be starting a podcast sometime soon. I might even turn this into a podcast episode. So stay tuned. And I've done the IC boot camp that Jamie offers. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
All right, everybody. I am Jamie Dickinson. I'm in Charleston, West Virginia. I am a reformed accountant turned college counselor. Like, who knew you could even do that? And I've been in practice for 22 years in Charleston, West Virginia. And if I can do what I do here, you all can do it wherever you are, which is part of the reason that I do the IAC Business Intensive Boot Camp. And so if you've not ever come to it, please get on our mailing list. You can go to iacadvisors.com and get on our mailing list. Right now, we don't have one scheduled. We may do one online. Krista and I are working on it. But anyway, so I see we've got a bunch of people out there, some of our alumni. So, hey, shout out to everybody out there. I love being an educational consultant, as you all know, but most importantly, I love making money at it. So if anybody ever tells you you cannot make money at this job, they're lying, because I've made more money doing this than I ever did in the, in the accounting world, and love it so much more. So I really concentrate on the business side because that's where I came from. And I can tell from the questions that we have a lot of people who come from the education side that business is just foreign to. And so that's really what I feel like what my goal is to help you get more of a grasp on the business aspect of your practice. So I started last week with a little Q&A, kind of like what I do in some of my mastermind groups. Are you doing educational consulting as a hobby or as you're doing it as a business? And I got a lot of feedback that people like that. So I have another story that I want to share with you that I want you to think about, because a lot of the questions that we have, especially me, and we deal like a whole section in it in the boot camp, is pricing. Is a lot of you all cannot figure out your pricing. So I'm going to give you an example of how I think about pricing, and then I want you to think about it too. So I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the graduation speaker at University of Southern California one year, and he told this story about the chauffeur and the physicist. And the story was that in this graduation speech, it was a great point for you to decide how you envision yourself with regards to being an educational consultant. So the story goes that Dr. Planck toured Germany giving speeches on quantum mechanics, and his chauffeur memorized his whole entire speech. And so one day the chauffeur suggested to Dr. Planck that he could do his speech as well as the doctor. So the doctor said, okay, I'll take you up on that. So the chauffeur gets up and he gives this speech flawlessly because he had it memorized. And then when it came to the first question, somebody asked a question and he was like, that was such a simple question. I'm going to refer this to my chauffeur to answer. And so my point of that whole thing is you have to think about, do you have chauffeur knowledge when it comes to educational consulting, or do you have Dr. Planck, the physicist, knowledge? So a chauffeur knowledge is you memorize your stuff, you regurgitate it out. Those of us that are in the education world have a tutoring center. That's what happens. 8th and 9th graders, they memorize stuff, they regurgitate it back out. You get in 11th grade when you have to critically, analytically think, and sometimes it throws the kids into a meltdown mode. So when you are thinking about what type of educational consultant are you a chauffeur? Do you have memorized knowledge? Or are you the physicist that you've been in the trenches, you know that, and then, how are you going to go out and take that? So now let's think about how you do that for pricing. The physicist obviously was the expert, right? So of course this physicist is going to get paid more than the chauffeur. And I think you need to think about that too. I'm sure that there are a lot of you who come from the educational, from the school side, who are phenomenal in your knowledge of college admissions and all that. And maybe you don't have the good business aspect side of it. And if you don't have the good business aspect of it, the one thing that this pandemic has done is to make you realize that you need to be up on the business aspect. So hopefully from doing these things with Cyndy, which this was a great idea that Cyndy had, and then after it's over, we're going to, continue it, whether you can do Cyndy stuff, do my boot camps, my mastermind groups, whatever. But just please try to school yourself in as much as being in this business as you do about other things. Like I would go to a conference where there's IACA, HECA, whatever, and people talk more about essays than anything. And I'm like, you should be talking about your business and how do you stay in business and how do you understand the business aspects. So that was kind of like a good little story that I want you to think about, like what type of physicist are you? The physicist? Are you the chauffeur? And I still want to go back to pricing, because every time I get questions, you know, the first time we did this, I said, you know, people were wanting to know after this pandemic if you should, you know, give your clients a discount. And I just said, absolutely not. And I said, if you want to give people a discount, like increase your fees 15%, like while nobody's looking. And then if somebody says, sure, here's 15% off, and then you're back to where you were. Somebody said it was unethical. I've never heard that a pricing strategy was unethical. So I really was thinking about that this week. So there's a really good answer to it. And I don't know if you all have ever gone to my website, but I believe in tiered pricing. So I have 4 tiers, but I feel like at minimum you should have 3. And you're realizing you're driving people to the middle tier. So if you don't want to discount your price, then have 3 different levels of pricing with different things. Like mine depends on how many hours people get with me. So if you want to have people don't have enough money to do it, then they just get less hours with you or something. So try to figure out how you can tier your prices. I call mine silver, gold, platinum, and VIP, because people can understand that. But, you know, just try to tier your pricing so that you have a lesser dollar amount for budget conscious people. And then you've got that big high dollar one for the people with the big egos or the people that need a bunch of help. And you're trying to drive people to your middle one. That's the one you're wanting to sell. So that was just kind of like a little fast, you know, advice about please tier your prices. If it's bothersome for you that people are always asking for a discount or wanting to haggle with you, just set up 3 tiers, and then you've got a tier for everybody. And the minute you say to somebody, well, if money is an issue, why don't you drop down to my silver? Oh, they're like, oh, money is not an issue. Well, then you sell them the gold, right? So you got to play on people's egos a little bit. If you're going to be a good salesperson, it's almost like a competition. You've got to outsmart whoever is buying for you, and you have to direct them and teach them how to do business with you, which we answer a whole lot of that in the boot camp. So please spend some time now that you got downtime on your pricing and come up with 3 tiers of pricing. And you're always welcome to go to jamiedickinson.com and look at my college planning fees, because I have mine tiered. All right, so now enough of that. Let's move on to this whole legislative thing. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the nightmare of filling out applications for the EIDL loan, for unemployment, for the PPP. And now this week we're hearing about, you know, all of these major corporations that are getting these millions of dollars. And I mean, those of us that know that like Harvard has like a $41 trillion unbelievable, you know, thing. And then they're taking all this. And then me, little old me, still has not gotten 1 dime of money from anybody. And I have been like right on the leading edge of this. So I think that now, even more painful than the application process is this dispersing of the funds is going to be even more painful for you all. So a lot of people were very confused when I said that self-employed people who didn't have rent or anything like that would probably needed to be prepared to pay back at least a percentage of their loan to the bank, or at least be prepared to turn it into a loan. And so I really want you to understand how you're doing it. They've came out with some clarification. So those of us who are self-employed, and remember there was a lot of confusion about, are you self-employed? And my answer was, if you don't have a boss that can fire you tomorrow, you are self-employed. Whether you're a Schedule C, a Sub S, a LLC, that's how your income is reported to the Internal Revenue Service. So let's just consider the fact that the majority of us are self-employed. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your Schedule C, your 2019 Schedule C, and that's the amount of money divided by 12 times 2.5 that you can apply for the PPP loan. Now, if you're like me, you don't have your 2019 tax return done, I took a copy and uploaded of my Schedule C for 2018, and then I printed my profit and loss for 2019 as an example and said, you know, I actually don't have it done yet, but here's a good estimate of what it's going to be. Now, if you take that, if you think about that, 2.5 times your monthly payroll is 11 weeks. but your payback period is only 8 weeks. So 75% of it has to be payroll, and the other 25% can be anything. They're going to compare it to the same time period last year. So no, you can't give yourself a big raise and a big bonus and doing it, because they're going to go back and compare. But if you don't have rent or anything else to put it on, so for example, if it's a maximum of $100,000 divided by 12, that's $8,333 a month times 2.5. So the total amount of the PPP loan you could do is $20,833. They're only giving you 8 divided by 52, 8 out of 52 weeks, divided by 100,000 is $15,000 in forgiveness. So that's $5,833. If you're like me, you can put it towards rent, because I pay rent. But my point is if you're in your house, you don't have rent, you need to be thinking about that other $5,000, what you're going to do with it. You're either going to have to pay it back or you're going to turn it into a loan. So there was a lot of confusion about that. And I think this week Treasury came out and gave us a whole lot more clarity on that. And so that's something that, you know, they gave a little bit of clarity to. Now, here's something that they still have not come out with much clarity. The language says costs incurred and payments made in the 8-week period. So that means we can't go to back pay and we can't go to forward pay. We only have to incur and pay in that 8-week period. And if you all who are English people, you know whether it's incurred and paid or paid and incurred both. I mean, there's this whole thing about when it's incurred and when it's paid that we need a lot of clarification over. And there's also a lot of clarification about if your payroll is forgiven, then whether you can deduct it or not. Me and a lot of other accounting people say that actually that is not going to be deductible. So you've got to be thinking about that. Now there's a lot of other clarification that needs to be. There's a lot of questions about, do I have to rehire the exact same people? The answer to that is no. You do not have to rehire the exact same people. You just have to keep the full-time equivalent number. So, you know, do I think that there's going to be a lot of people putting their family on here and their kids on here? Yes, but just realize if you go back for an audit, if you try to scam the system, somebody will get you. So you've got to realize that forgiveness on this loan is not guaranteed. This PPP is a loan. Flat out, it's a loan. It's not a grant unless you can turn it into the forgiveness part of what that is. And the problem is, just like how these banks have done their own application, each bank is going to have their own determination of what forgiveness is. So I have 2 friends who have heard 2 different things from their bank. One said that the whole amount had to be forgiven or it was turning into a loan. So you had to use the whole amount to be forgiven or none of it was forgiven. Another one of my friends, her bank said that it could be proportionally forgiven. So I think banks are going to be doing it differently. And I think this whole forgiveness thing is going to need a whole lot more clarification. So there's very grave miscommunication on the difference between the forgiveness and the repayment. So let me sum up what I think the problems are. 1, they need more clarification about what costs are actually forgiven. There's the question about rent. Is it just office rent or is it equipment rental and, you know, postage meter rental? What kind of rental is it? So we need a lot more clarification to determine which costs are allowed. There's also the question of, is it when it's incurred, when is it paid, or when is it both? And then another thing, a lot of people don't understand the time frames. So supposedly this legislation ends on June 30. So if you are in the second round of PPP and you don't get your money till June 1st, are they going to extend the 8-week period past June 30? So there's another thing that we need some clarification on. And we still don't know the exact formula for reducing the cost. And when the banks start making up their own rules, Lord, we don't even know any of us where we're going. All right. So that was just a wrap up, I think, of the problems that I have felt that came out this week from this whole thing. So Now, I want to go to the questions that you all submitted last week and summed it up. So we didn't get a chance to answer a lot of them. So I want to go back and let's talk about this. Now, self-employed people can file for unemployment now. In the state of West Virginia, I thought I was already in the pot, and then I found out, no, they've created a whole nother way for self-employed people to do it, and I can't apply till tonight at 10 o'clock. Then there's a whole lot of confusion about if you're on unemployment and you get the PPP loan. If you can't have both, you either got to be on one or the other. So if you are on unemployment and then, 3 weeks from now you get PPP, you have to let your state Department of Unemployment know that you're coming off because you got the PPP loan. And if you're like me and you apply and you just never hear, then just stay on unemployment. But it's either unemployment or PPP, right? You can't double dip for the same thing. Okay, another big thing was a lot of you all said you did not have a banking relationship. So 2 good places. QuickBooks. I don't know how many of you all do QuickBooks or QuickBooks Payroll. Like I logged into my QuickBooks last week and it said, QuickBooks is now doing PPP loan. So I applied. So now I have 3 applications for the PPP loan. I have one at my bank, BB&T. I have one through QuickBooks. And then I found another place called Lendio, Lendio. Which is very reputable, and I applied there. So I have 3 places that I have applied for PPP loans for all of my businesses. Now, once I hear from one of them that I'm approved, I have to withdraw from the other 2, right? So just realize if you've applied somewhere and you don't think you're going to hear anything, apply somewhere else. I mean, you can apply however many places you want and just hope that you get one of them. But I was really excited about QuickBooks, and I use QuickBooks Online and I use QuickBooks for my payroll. And when I went in to fill out my PPP application, they had already populated the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I love you. They had already figured out my payroll, and because it was all in there, right? So if you use QuickBooks, please try that. If you don't use QuickBooks, try Lendio. All right. That brought up another question. Somebody said, did I have a recommendation for software? Listen, I am a QuickBooks freak. Love QuickBooks. I've been using QuickBooks since I got out of college, actually, and I love QuickBooks for payroll. So if I were you, I would try QuickBooks for payroll before I would start hiring an accountant, because QuickBooks Payroll Online figures all your 941, all your taxes, files them electronically for you. By the time you sit and figure out the time that you're going to give to your accountant to pay your payroll, you've already got it done in QuickBooks. So somebody asked the question, if I had a recommendation for what company to use for payroll, I would try to do it myself in QuickBooks. Oh, there was another question. A lot of people were confused about my definition of part-time and full-time. So in the accounting world, and it depends really on what it is, most places say full-time is 40 hours a week, but you can drop it down as low as 30 hours a week. Like if you've got a pension plan, you can say it's 37 and a half hours. So actually the definition of full-time is going to be your definition. But usually it's anywhere from 30 to 40 hours a week is full-time. Anything less than 30 hours a week is part-time. So I hope that clarified that. So if you have not already applied for the PPP, please go ahead and do it. And if like my bank said, they're closed, they're not taking anything else, then try QuickBooks, try Lendio, try something else like that you can do. So I think that was the majority of all the things. I just want you all to realize this. We are educators stepping into the world of entrepreneurship. And when you go out on your own and you think, oh, this is just like, I'm getting on the good ship lollipop, I'm going to have a great, I'm going to make all this money, be self-employed, and realize you're almost on Battleship Galactica. I mean, if you cannot take this business serious, if you do not have an accountant who's advising you, if you don't have an insurance agent you're talking to, if you don't have a lawyer advising you, again, like I said last week, you're going to be better off to go to work for somebody else if you don't want to deal with all that. Because listen, the IRS is going to take all of this stuff seriously, and trust me, after this loan dispersed 2-3 years from now, everybody is going to end up getting audited, because the federal government is going to come back and want to know what everybody did with this money. And remember what I said, if you are commingling your personal money with your business money, you are opening yourself up to a huge amount of anxiety from going through it. So I think if you're in this to win it, and you're in it like me to make money, which I am, and trust me, you educators that think it's not right to make money, that you need to give everything away, I 100% disagree, because college board's making money, all these other people, everybody's making money. You need to make money too, because otherwise you just need to go work for a charity. But your business does not need to be a charity. So think about it in those different ways. Krista and I and Cyndy, we love getting your questions, because it's so fascinating for me how you think. And I guess because I have a degree in accounting and an MBA in finance, and I've been out there, chief financial officer of a coal company for 10 years and been on my own for 22 years. And maybe these were the questions that I was worried about like a long, long time ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so refreshing to hear that, you all have these questions. So for me, there is no stupid question. Don't ever think there's a stupid question. And, like some people will be like, how do you not know if you're self-employed? But if you've never really thought about it, right? I mean, my definition is, if I've got somebody that can fire me tomorrow and put me out of work, I am an employee. If not, I'm self-employed. That's kind of an easy definition. So please send us your questions, and it also helps us because we may come up with other topics to put in the boot camp. And so I don't know whether you want to take questions now. Cyndy, you want to go ahead and do your half, and we just go from there?
Let's go ahead and cover some of the questions that are specific to what you've talked about. Because we're generating some, and great conversations, great chat going on too. Just in terms of billing and how to handle that, and what to, not only what to charge, but how to collect payment, things like that. So
okay, that's great.
I don't know if we'll have time to do all of that, because I have quite a bit to share, but we can dedicate next week's session to pricing. And what does that look like? And how do you do it? And what are ways to get pricing, get payment, and why, you can expand a little bit on the 3 tiers, 4 tiers that you just talked about. I'll share a little bit about what I've done. And I agree with you. And I tell people this too. I mean, I live in a very rural area. Central California is not LA. It's not San Francisco. Many of you have heard me say there are more cows in Tulare County than people. I have the largest FFA program in the nation right down the street. So this is not a highly affluent area at all. Probably 85, maybe 90% of my families are first generation college students. Many of them are first generation Americans. So it's a much different population. And I'm just like Jamie, if I can do it here, you can do it anywhere. So it all has to do with knowing your population, your clientele, what their needs are, and adapting to those. Because sometimes we hear what people do in, like in New York City, what I do would never fly there, or what you do in Chicago, I couldn't do here. So, looking at that and incorporating that into who we are and what we do, I think is so key. And so there can be a lot of conversation for that. All right, so Krista, do you want to run through some of these questions?
Yeah, I think there's some great questions that Jamie could clarify for a few. And there's been a few questions, Jamie, as far as filing for unemployment yet still working with your clients.
Okay, so we've addressed that a couple times. If you look at the definition in this law, it is a reduction of income. So it doesn't mean that you have to be like without income. Like at the yoga studio, I have a yoga studio. At the yoga studio, we have not brought a dime of money in since the day I shut down. But here, if you look at my pricing strategy, you know, I have people on a monthly auto pay. So I have still been bringing people in. But if your income is down less than 50% compared to the last year, I'm suffering a reduction in income. So get it out of your head that you can't make money, because the definition of this law is actually the unemployment for self-employed people is a reduction of income. And another thing, and maybe I ought to talk about this later, is the EIDL loan, the EIDL EIDL loan is actually a replacement of income. So as soon as this settled down, I'm going to apply for the EIDL loan once I know my overall revenue, how much my overall revenue has come down, and then I'm going to apply for the EIDL loan to replace my revenue. So there are a lot of things that you can do, but don't just get in your, I mean, if you're making 100% of what you were before this, then no, don't apply for unemployment. But if you are down, I mean, all you got to do is go in QuickBooks and do an income comparison, a profit and loss comparison, select today, go back 90 days, and if it'll tell you the percentage, if you're down more than 50% revenue, don't worry about it. I mean, that's a good question.
Great. Now, we do have an IEC that is in their first year as an IEC, and they want to know how they determine their loss to income since they don't have records from last year for references.
Okay, so now a new IEC, remember you had to be in business before February 15th, 2020. So hopefully you had been in business for that. So let's say you were in business 6 months, your average would be 6 months. And so probably what would happen is if the 3 months before that you're down 50% more than you are now. That was a question. I was on a webinar this morning, and that was a question that came up. And so all you have to go by is your average for the 3 months previous. So if your 3 months previous compared to this 3 months is down more than 50%, that would trigger it. So that's a good question.
Awesome. Now, one thing that is really good, there is a good question of money paid to their independent contractors who they use as their tutoring staff. Does that count as payroll for the PPP loan?
No, and we've talked about that. Your independent contractors, if you pay somebody a 1099, they are self-employed, and it's their problem to deal with their own stuff, but you cannot count it in your payroll costs. No, definitely not. They are their own person. They got to file their own stuff.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Those are some good questions. I think, Cyndy, you can take the reins now.
And Cyndy, let me go back to what you were talking about billing, because pricing is separate from billing. So pricing is how you price, and billing is how you get your money in. And like Krista can tell you, here at my place, nobody comes through the front door unless they're paid in full. I can sit here today and tell you, there is not anybody that owes me 1 red cent. And I learned that in my MBA program. Your accounts receivables will kill you. So before you do work for anybody, you make sure you're paid. And I got lots of ways that we can do that. So I'm glad you brought that up, Cyndy, because that is a completely different topic. Pricing and billing are 2 completely different things. Great idea.
Yeah. So Jamie, the new law I haven't listened to the news yet this morning. Did the bill pass with more money, or is that still in process?
No, from what I understood, it did pass. I mean, I don't know when it's going to be dispersed, but as you can see, I think there's going to be a lot of money that's going to come back into the pot from the Ruth Chris and all this stuff that's going to go back into the pot to get to us little people. But I mean, you all, I just would not have had the audacity to apply for anything like that if I had $40-some million in assets. And I think that's part of where they screwed up on this thing, that they did not make it if you had other assets now. And part of this whole publicly funded thing, I don't know if you all get the difference between the publicly funded companies versus, private companies. But a public company can do a lot of other things to raise money. They can go out, they can sell stock, so but that was just, they threw this thing together so fast. I think that now that they've had time to think about it, I think they will kind of fix it going forward and realize this: Congress can do whatever they want. So they can just go back and completely change the whole thing if they want to, which that's how come, just every week trying to keep up with the new stuff is takes up all my time. So yeah, so I think that we're going to see new money come out, and I think it's going to be done different. But I think everybody needs to be prepared. If you do participate in the unemployment, the PPP, or the EIDL loan, be prepared that probably within the next 5 years you're going to get audited. Just be prepared for it. It will
It's
happen.
good words of advice. Yes, that has to kind of go along with it. Elizabeth said it was passed in science. So,
Well,
we
and here's another thing. You can get audited by your state or you can get audited by the federal government. Remember that. They're
Yeah.
two separate things. So, yeah.
Yep. And if you pay taxes in more than one state, then you can be audited by more than one state, right?
Yep. And especially in consumer sales tax.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And sometimes they make it so hard. Okay, so let's switch gears here just a little bit and talk about admissions updates. Still a lot of things, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things up in the air. But I just wanted to take the questions from last week and I've put them in and rolled them into the news from the week. So I'm going to give you this admissions update. And we see more and more colleges jumping on the bandwagon, both public and private schools, for doing tests optional or, test waivers. This is just a partial list. Cornell just yesterday, Wellesley sent out an email. I think I got it just the other day. Tulane, Northeastern, Loyola Marymount, some public schools, Indiana, University of Washington. There's a whole list on my blog on Guided Paths, so you can see it, and there's a chart. There's also other charts available to keep track of this, but we're going to see more and more of this. And so that's one of the things that we're able to, families are wondering about, and they're hearing this news all the time. And what does that mean? Should I take the test or not? And then we have our wonderful California State Universities, and they've done it even a step farther. And they've said, not only do you not have to send your SAT or ACT in, but we don't even care if you do. We're not even going to look at it. It's not going to affect it. We're not even going to check it at all. So, Suzanne's, one of her points and questions is, many students use the SAT and ACT to balance out a lower grade. I've got a lower grade, but I've got a higher SAT score. I'm going to increase your profile of your student body or your recruitment class. And, I'm just, we all feel bummed for those students, not only in this system here in California, but in other systems too, that need that extra boost to help them. And if the school is going test optional where they can still submit and at least be viewed, that can be a benefit. So, we have a lot of test prep people who are also joining the forum and on the calls, and having some thoughts or things that, what does that look like and what are you recommending for your students and clients that you work with? Because, I don't know how many more are going to take it one step farther. And if you know that there's a school or a district, a school or a system in your area that's taken it to the, one step farther to be test blind, then that's, let us know, put us in the chat. And Allison says, yeah, it's just CSUs that are test blind. UCs are still optional. So the students don't have to submit tests, but if they do, they'll be considered. And I think that's the majority of the colleges are taking that approach. I read Wellesley's, email, they talk about, well, we know students aren't going to have access. And right now, we don't even know if they're going to be able to take them even in the fall. So they're taking that in consideration, but you can read between the lines and it sure sounds like if you can take the test, please do so. So that's definitely, see what what the next steps is going to be. So let's go more. And here's some more questions from last week. Well, what about? And many of you have these questions this week. I've read some schools are giving all of your students A's for this semester. Seems unreal, if not unfair. How will colleges handle this? I'm expecting they'll throw spring grades out if all students have A's. You think? Or what about the online coursework being provided by different high schools? You know, we're all talking to our students, and I'm sure you're finding, as I am, that the quality of online education, you know, ranges from top level to zilch. And I've had some of my students who've said, well, we've been told by the school district this isn't going to count. My grade was frozen in March, so anything I do now is extra credit. So I already have an A, so why? I'm not even bothering. So, you know, the whole range of what people are doing is just, you know, it's vast and it's just crazy. So what do the colleges say about that? And, you know, and this was addressed, and I'm just pulling in a couple of quotes and things, and I'm sure many of you will see others, especially for the areas you are, that you reside in. But, you know, the University of California, pass or credit grades will meet A to G subject requirements. So at least the students won't be lacking. They're not going to be missing an English credit or a math credit or some of those other things. Here in California, they have to meet that, you know, the A to G is like our academic Bible. So they have to meet that. They're just not going to be counted in their GPA. Well, some of my students are saying, well, that's crappy because I have a great GPA. I want it to count. And so, you know, there's going to be a lot of repercussions that we just don't know. And then this was in the Wellesley information. It's like, we want to assure students that their final transcript will be evaluated thoughtfully and within the context of their entire application and also current events. Now, this was referring to the incoming students who are worried they've got admissions and worried about, you know, their final transcript evaluation. But the colleges recognize many are doing credit, no credit, pass, fail, giving everybody A's, you know, freezing grades, all of the above. So, you know, as we talked about last week, we're all in this, everybody's going through this, everybody's experiencing things. So nobody's going to be in this alone, and the college is going to have, if they want to have a class, they're going to have to take these into consideration. So that is definitely, that they will be a part of that. Okay. So, and I'm seeing some comments about, yeah, so Gail said, as the UCSB said, they won't even look at the semester grades. She's right. They're not, and that's what they said. They're not going to be even calculated in the GPA. So they're still going to look at what classes you took, but not calculate the GPA. And it's not just for this year's senior or junior class, for any student in high school right now, this term. So it's going to have repercussions over the next 4 years. So that's definitely, so I'm seeing other comments about tuition and things like that. So that's definitely another topic. And one that's very much on the top of people's minds. I want to point out that the NACAC put out, they've had a tool, and you know, you'll notice it's been evolving as the whole situation's been evolving. When it first came out, it's like, oh, everybody had to close their campuses, no visits. And well, now that's kind of a moot point. You know, we're not worried. We know we can't go visit schools. We can't send our students to go visit. Summer programs are kind of done, so that's why I put X's on those 3. And you'll notice there's a lot more factors on here now. You know, the change deposit deadline, that was a big thing. Most people have decided, yes, we're going to change it from May 1, or no, we're not. And so we'll see what that, next Friday is May 1st, so we'll see how that goes. But I thought it was great, and I'm sure there'll be more categories added to this tool. 3rd quarter, 1st semester transcript, AP course plans. Are they going to take the students' AP grades or, you know, credits? So keep track of the NACAC tool. It's they keep opening it and adding more things to it. And I thought that was helpful. So the big question is what's going to happen in the fall? How are colleges planning to bring new students onto campus? Are they thinking about going to a Southern Hemisphere? I love this reference, Joseph. It was a great reference, like starting in January to August, or what are they planning on doing? And what about updates of schools that have decided they won't be back in the fall? You know, are there dates that they have to make these decisions? And then with some of the colleges getting money, you know, does that affect what they're going to do? That's a big, big question. Some UCs, here's another one. What about the quality of education? As Sandra asked, and thanks, she sent me email with this question. So if you have something you're really burning question, feel free to send it to me or to Jamie, and our emails are on here as well. But some UCs or whatever campuses are deciding if next semester will be all online. And then the parents are wondering, should I even enroll? If they're going to be homeschooled, why should I pay all that money and just maybe skip a semester? We've talked a lot about going gap year, enrolling in a community college or something like that online instead of going to a UC or, you know, other college. And that's a huge question. And that's why on this previous this tool from NACAC, you know, they're looking at, well, what are the anticipated registration? Are they going to see a drop? And most colleges are expecting anywhere from a 15 to 20% drop in the fall. So what is the next phase going to look like? Many different articles about this last week, and I thought this one was very telling. And this PowerPoint will be on our website, the ones from the last 2 weeks. I'm always posting them on cindymcdonald.com, so you can go back. That's where you'll see the recordings, and that's where you'll have the PowerPoint. So, and I've tried to put in all the references so that you can have the links to actual articles. But, you know, Nicholas Christakis, who's a sociologist and a physician at Yale, said, I don't think there's any scenario under which it's business as usual. We're not going to go back to the same old. So the question becomes, what is our new normal going to be in the fall or even for the next 18 months? And from what I'm hearing is, we're not going to have a new normal until a vaccine is developed for this virus. The idea that we can somehow just get back to normal and go back to school in the fall, because we always have, is not reasonable. I think we're going to have to figure out other ways of doing this. Colleges need to have a contingency plan ready. And this is what Brian Alexander said. And so that's, what are we seeing? We're just starting to see a little bit of information on that. Brian Alexander actually wrote an article, and he said, here are 3 scenarios that we could have in the fall. One he calls the post-pandemic campus. It's reopened for in-person classes. People are doing research on campus. People are still a little hesitant. They're a little unsure. There's no vaccine yet. We're doing social distancing, so you're reducing the number of students in a classroom, things like that. So that could be one scenario. The other one is everybody goes back. They go back just like you would, have orientation, everything like before, and then there's no tests, there's no new vaccine, and then it's going to generate new outbreaks. And so that could be one scenario. So they called it the pandemic fall. And then the last one he talks about is a toggle term, where the pandemic roars back. So people are back, maybe you're in scenario 1 or scenario 2, they're back either, in a structured environment or just free for all. And then the pandemic roars back, and then they get thrown back into perpetual crisis mode, like this spring, where students were told, you've got to move out in 3 days. So those are the 3 scenarios that, and I'm sure there are many others, and, none of us have a magic crystal ball, but, thinking about what those might look like and how that might play out in, 3 or 4 months' time. So some colleges are looking ahead. Boston University stated that they're looking at doing online, and then they quickly backtracked a little bit because it was affecting their enrollment and the deposits they were getting. So they kind of backtracked that a little. I heard CSU Fullerton is also thinking about, well, how can we do this? I know our local community college, my husband works for a local community college here in California, they're already starting to think. They haven't even pulled summer yet, though. So you know, it's just kind of hopeful. People are kind of being hopeful. And do you know of others that are virtual? So Gail says Fullerton has already said they're going virtual. You know, and then for like international students, should they send something and let people say they're coming no matter what? I don't think it would hurt. You know, we have no idea what the fall is going to bring. So I don't think it would hurt to let people know, and colleges and things know. So another school that's been in the news this last week is Beloit. And they said they're going to offer 2x2 modules so that they can, you know, space out students, have fewer students on campus. It's a new education model. They're going to freeze tuition, and then they're also going to match in-state tuition at their public flagship universities. So there's a whole list of schools on their websites. Like, if you get an offer here, we'll match it, because they're trying to keep those students. So they're thinking outside the box, and they are trying to, you know, be proactive. Now, Nicolette says, how does this situation affect wait lists? I think we're going to see wait lists clear into August. I would not be a bit surprised, because, you know, and those schools that, I mean, some schools postpone their deposit dates from May 1 to June 1. Some are in July. And so, and I saw one was even in August. So because those deposit dates have been, you know, expanded out, then that's just going to expand the wait list. But I expect the wait list is going to be used quite extensively. And those are going to be some of the questions we're going to be able to ask when we have our 2 admissions representatives join us in 2 weeks. So we're going to see, how did May 1 go? What does it look like? We have a private school, and hopefully we're working on a public school representative to come join us. So, so those will be very important questions to ask. So there are some colleges that have done a really good job of just being ahead of their time and putting together and having schedules that are a little unique. Here's one example. If you can think of another example of a school, put in the chat, which school do you think this one is? They have 3-track system. The students apply, they pick what their preference is. So like those of you who are here in California, for UC San Diego, the students will say, here are my preferences 1 to 6 for the UC San Diego colleges. And usually they'll get, you know, in their top 3, but they have to pick. So the same thing at this college, the students have to say, I want spring, fall, I want fall, winter, winter, spring. So this school has been doing this for quite some time. It's not new, and they did it years ago because they couldn't increase the enrollment on their campus, but they, the size of the campus, the number of students at one time, so they created this. So I see Hampshire. What other schools do you guys think this might be? I'm going to give you a hint. Come on, somebody else has got to have an idea. Chris said Hampshire. Jennifer said Pepperdine. Okay. I'm surprised Colorado College hasn't come up yet. They don't do this particular thing, but something, you know. Aha, Jennifer, you got it. Jennifer said, and she is right, it is BYU, Idaho. They've done this for years, and it's a way to expand the campus. And sometimes there's really good benefits. Students go in the spring, then they're home in the winter, and their friends are off, and they're working for, you know, Christmas. So BYU, Idaho has done this. So there are a lot of schools out there with some innovative ideas. Colorado College, the work colleges. I'd love to do a session on work colleges. So yeah, Jennifer says she is a former student that goes there, and a lot of students, especially, you know, it's an LDS school. So I have a lot of students that go there too. And, you know, it's kind of the go-to. And talk about inexpensive schools, that's another topic. But Northern New Hampshire, we've noticed that this week they announced they have a 61 tuition cut. Their tuition is going to go from $31K down to $10K, but they're going to phase it in. So 2021, 2022 and beyond, The first year, the freshmen are going to take courses online. So they're going to live on campus. They're going to do all the social stuff, but they're not going to have instruction on the campus. So they'll have their classes online and then have the hybrid. So they're going to have a hybrid for the first year. They're going to give them scholarship money so nobody feels like they're being gypped. And then after the first year, their tuition will be $10,000. So that is something that has, you know, they were taking a bold step forward. And the article talks about how they got more deposits in hours after announcing that than they had the whole previous week. So it might be time. I mean, this is always an ongoing discussion, but now with the times we're in, that we might be seeing more of this. And just in general, in terms of where we're at and how information or how education is being delivered, here's another quote. And I want you to think about who this might be. This is another school, and on their website, they say it's time for learning to be more resilient, relevant, and effective. And beginning with first principles, we systematically designed a methodology that draws on decades of research into learning, comprehension, recall, and crucially, transfer of information, transfer of knowledge into real life. So in the chat, tell me who you think this college is. Which college has that kind of innovative approach thinking and they use a, what's called a flipped classroom. So I see St. John's, MIT, where else? Case Western, keep going. I know you guys have ideas, Goucher, keep going. St. John's, so we've got 2 for St. John's, absolutely. Champlain, Reed. Okay, give me 2 more. Pitzer, okay. Southwestern, oh, I'm glad you said that. Northeastern, all right. Kenyon, it's Minerva. So if you've not heard of Minerva Education or the Minerva program, they don't have a campus. The first year, they're just online. Students have a trademark program that they put together. The students spend the first year online education, and then they travel around the world. They do, 8 semesters and, travel all over the world. And their cost is like $23,000. Their admissions rate, I don't remember the last time I checked, but it's like 5%. So it's at the same level as MIT and Stanford and Harvard, but they are very innovative. And now in many ways, they were thinking at a time, and it's because of these principles. So I've done interviews with both a student and director of admissions at Minerva. So if you're interested, just ping me and I'll send you the links to those interviews. They are on my YouTube channel. All right, we've got like 2 minutes left. Jamie, what will we hear about financial aid award changes? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know, but I did find out about a nice new little tool that I thought was pretty slick. We had this in the NCAG webinar. So those of you that are part of NCAG, a shout out to you. And Colleen covered this, the Swift student, it's called Swift student form, and you can actually put in information. It's sort of like a legal thing where you'll go and put in information. It'll create out a legal document for you. Well, this will create a financial aid appeal letter. So I thought it was pretty interesting. There are many other tools out there for doing that kind of thing. But in general, colleges, this is another quote, and this is from the UC. You can tell where I live. But the university understands families' financial circumstances may have changed. But what I thought was interesting, as I said, we're not going to worry about it till the summer. Let's get our classes taken care of, and then we'll worry about it. And that's, I think, what we're going to find for a lot of the schools. So financial aid, good. So I'm seeing comments about the Swift student. Also, another cool tool that was demonstrated was Quattro Money, I think. So anybody who's on here who can put that up, just put that in there too. So
It's 3 o'clock.
okay, so
That was my computer.
that
You know
was
what?
your computer.
I have my computer set to on the top of the hour to say what time it is so that my clients will like move out of the office because like otherwise they just sit here. So my computer goes, it's 3 o'clock. I'm like, okay, it's time for you to go now. That's why it's 3 o'clock.
That's brilliant. So Melissa says Minerva freshmen live in a residence hall in San Francisco. Yes, and so they do their first year in San Francisco. What a terrible place to be, right? And they have a synchronous web-based tool. So this trademark tool that they've developed. So a learning system. It's a learning management system, and their teachers are taught and trained how to teach online. Another school that does a lot of things online is Lynn University, and I've interviewed Stefano Papaleo about that, and I can bring him back and we can talk about that. So this week prizes go to Beloit and Northern New Hampshire. They're progressive, they're addressing costs, they're doing things proactively. And this week I'm still giving the prize for the head in the sand to ACT. I can't believe they have not canceled the June ACT test yet. I don't think they're addressing current realities yet, and I think they're missing opportunity. So
Okay, so here's the deal. Quit wishing them to cancel it because I'm going to make money if they keep it on. Don't put the jinx on me. You're killing us, test prep people, Cyndy.
you know, the good news is like at least we were in California and New York. We have never been able to give students the ACT in July. And so now I understand, and somebody helped me last week, I looked it up, California and New York can both provide the ACT in July. So maybe they'll do it in July. You just shift them from June to July.
Hey, listen, if they're opening tattoo joints in Georgia, surely God, we ought to be able to do the ACT. Do you believe they're like that part of like what that was? Like the phase 1 included tattoo joints and bowling alleys. I'm like,
Exactly.
oh my God, I don't get the whole thing, but yeah, listen, I'm banking on test prep money, so I don't care where they got to do it. I just hope they do it because every time they cancel a test, it just kills me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from a money standpoint, I hope it goes.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you. This hour has flown by for us. I hope it's flown by for you too. Krista, you do such a wonderful job. Jamie, it's just such a delight to have you be my, we're kind of, as one of my colleagues said, we're yin and yang. So thanks for joining us. I hope you'll join us again next week. And if you have thoughts or comments, please send them to Jamie's way or my way. Have a great week. Please stay safe and stay healthy and stay sane and just, you know, let's have some fun. Life's too short not to take advantage of what we've been given. So
And I hope people get money. I hope next year you'll be like, I got my PPP. Next time I got my PPP. I got my EIDL. I got my unemployment. I hope our peeps are going to get some money.
Yes. Yeah. Me too.
Old Mother Hubbard, my cupboard is bare.
Yeah.
I don't like it like that either.
Yeah. And see, and I'm busier than ever right now. My students are so freaked out. They're like pinging me right and left. So,
well, let me tell you something. Talking about your financial aid, like the last 10 days I've negotiated, well, my clients have negotiated with my direction. And now is a great time to negotiate your financial aid. These colleges are freaking out. And if you can, if you can like play, I know I have a worksheet, I have a spreadsheet that I do that, that I give to them, but like that point about the financial aid, it's a good time to negotiate.
Yep. I have a spreadsheet that I work with my families too. And, it's pretty simple. It's straightforward. You just have to, and the approach is that it doesn't hurt to ask. Because all they can do is say no.
No, right?
Right. And if they can't say yes if you don't ask them, right?
And I was at a conference one time and somebody said, well, who even knew you could negotiate financial aid? I said, everything in this country is negotiable. Why do you think there are so many lawyers? Everything's negotiable. Everything.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. Have a good time. Have a good week. We'll be back again next Friday. And like we said, we're going to do this. We kind of go through the news until we don't need it anymore. So, all right, take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.